What's up, everybody? It's AJ. We're back with another reaction. Let's get into it.
You're driving home from work. You don't know it, but your tail light's out. And the next thing you know, you see red and blue lights behind you. You're not drunk, you're not carrying, and you're not coming from anywhere suspicious. The officer walks up to your window. He takes a look at your license, determines you've got insurance, and after he walks back from his cruiser, checking on your plates and running your criminal history, he leans in and says, "Why are you so nervous right now?" Now, you may not realize it, but what you say in the next few seconds will determine whether the officer hands you back your license and your insurance and tells you to go on your way, or if he looks at you and starts a series of questions that opens up a big criminal investigation and now the cop won't let you go. And the biggest mistake most people make is that when he leans in and says, "Why are you so nervous?" most people begin to try to answer the officer, explain their way out of the situation, and it doesn't work. Because
Yeah, my dad says trouble's easy to get into and hard to get out of. And he also says words are like toothpaste. Once you say them, you can't take them back. So when you're talking to the police, they're trying to come up with what they think happened. So obviously, they're asking a trick question.
here's what most people don't know. That question, "Why are you so nervous right now?" that is a specific technique they are trained in the academy.
And let me ask you this: how do you know I'm nervous? If you've never met me before, how do you know how I act and how I don't act? Because I've been out in public and I've seen people who I thought seemed nervous or things like that, and then I got to know them, and that's just how. So how do you get to make that up?
in order to get you talking, because it's not really a question, it's an investigative technique. So in this video, not only am I going to break down how you can avoid the mistake most people make here, I'm going to give you the exact script, word for word, that you can use to shut cops down. Without lying, without escalating, and without giving anything that officer can use to put in his report. But first, let me show you the trap, because once you see it, you won't forget it. When an officer leans in and asks why you're so nervous, he's not asking because he's curious about your emotional state. He's asking because he wants you to explain yourself. And any explanation, honest, well-meaning, no matter what it is, can now be used to craft what's known as reasonable articulable suspicion, which may allow him to investigate you further. You see, reasonable articulable suspicion is the legal standard cops must meet in order to extend your traffic stop, keep asking you more questions, or ultimately maybe ask for consent to search your car. And right now, before you've said a single word about your nerves, he doesn't yet have it. But he's hoping, by asking this trick question, that your answer will give it to him. So why is this trick question used so often by cops? Well, I want you to think about what most people say to this, and I want you.
Well, because most people don't believe that they're bad people, and most people aren't doing anything wrong. So they feel like they will be able to explain that they're not doing anything wrong. The issue is when you're looking for things, you find things. So they're looking for a reason for you to be wrong. So they're going to find a reason for you. But let's see if that's what he basically says in a nutshell.
Analyze this, because the natural instinctive things to say is actually some of the worst possible responses you could give to these cops. Perhaps the most common answer to cops asking this question is, "I'm sorry, I get nervous around the police." Now, most people think that sounds harmless and maybe even comes across as a little apologetic. But if you get a cavalier cop over here who's looking to get into your car or get you outside of the car, he's going to note that in his report. Suspect mentioned specifically he gets nervous around police. If anything actually
Why?
happens during the stop, like let's say the conversation gets escalated somehow, or the cop starts feeling like his officer's safety is at risk and now he needs to perform a search, he's going to use your stated reason for being nervous around the police as his justification to do what he wants to do. But even if you don't say that, perhaps the second most common answer is, "No offense, I've just had some bad experiences with police before." Now, this might feel like you're just giving context to his question, but in reality, you can guarantee a follow-up question is coming. What kind of bad experiences? Now you're discussing your prior contact with law enforcement on the side of the road without an attorney present. So, okay, maybe you don't say,
Man, just giving up all the sauce. When you do that, you're just giving up all the sauce for 'em.
But what if you say the most third common answer that most people give, which is, well, I'm just nervous that I might be getting a ticket. Now, this is probably the most innocent sounding answer of all. And in a lot of stops, it's probably fine. But watch what happens next. The
Right.
officers love to follow up with this.
What was you doing?
I understand. I just want to make sure everything's okay too. Is there anything in the car I should know about? That
Right.
question comes directly after this answer most of the time. It's the second trap inside the first one. I mean, think about it. You explained your nervousness, it sounded reasonable, and now there's no reason you should be nervous about me taking a look at what's in your car. But then comes perhaps the most direct answer you can give the cops. I'm not nervous. You think you're shutting it down, but you're not. He's reading your body language. If you say you're not nervous, but you look away, or maybe your hands are fidgeting, or maybe you start to squirm a little in your seat, now the officer's report's going to say this. Suspect denied being nervous, inconsistent with his observed behavior. Now you've added a credibility problem to whatever else was already happening. So here's where most people end up.
And it doesn't matter if you have a medical problem because they don't know that. It doesn't matter if like I said, they don't know what your baseline is. So they're just basing it off of what they think your baseline is. So you better watch it. Let's see what he
You
tells
can't
us.
really explain your nervousness, but then it's difficult really to deny it. You can't just sit there and stare at the windshield. That will be characterized as uncooperative and suspicious. And now their officer's safety is at risk and they'll get you out of the car.
You gotta get
Every
out.
option makes you feel like you have no option, which is precisely why you've got to know how the law is on your side. In the 1989 Supreme Court case of United States versus Sokolow, the Supreme Court ruled that nervousness alone was not enough to extend a traffic stop or to be able to search your car. They did say that nervousness can be considered as part of the totality of the circumstances, but it can't be enough on its own to warrant officers searching your car or keeping you on the side of the road. By itself, nervousness is not enough. But your words explaining that nervousness, that's a different story. By choosing
And like I said, like he's about to say, I don't know if he's about to say this, but like I said, by choosing to talk, you giving them all the sauce they need to sauce you up and put you in the bracelets. The Cartier, the bracelets.
talk to the cops about why you're supposedly nervous, cops can then interpret anything you say, innocent answers, direct responses, as them saying you are being deceptive, or perhaps even your responses themselves show that you have criminal behavior and they have a reason to either search more or detain you. So the real question isn't whether you're nervous. The courts have already said that's not enough. The real question is whether you're going to play the game and give the officer the answer he wants to use that against you. Which is why I'm now going to give you the exact words, the precise script to use to shut cops down when they claim you look nervous. Here's exactly what to say. Officer, I'm staying focused on the reason for the stop. Am I free to go? Now, why are these words so magical?
Man, and that's way easier than trying to explain how you're not in an emotional state or anything like that. That is way easier. I'm focused on the stop. Am I free to go?
By saying, officer, I'm focused on the reason for the stop, you have not
The reason
chosen
for the stop.
to be combative. You are not being uncooperative. You've redirected the conversation back to the only legal thing the officer is allowed to do. That is cooperative, that is reasonable, and it's very difficult for the officer to claim you are being combative or not cooperating. But then by adding the magic words, am I free to go, you've just pulled out the most powerful question you can ask a cop during a traffic stop.
Yeah, because then it shows that it's not what's that word that I'm looking for? Consensual. It's not a consensual conversation if I'm not free to go.
It forces the cop to commit to one of two things. Either number one, he says, you're not being detained, you're free to go, and now you're able to drive off. Or if he says you can't leave and you're being detained, it then requires him to articulate the basis for the detention, and then you can turn right around and look at him and say, if that's the case, I exercise my right to remain silent. I won't say another word until my attorney is present. But what if the officer pushes back and says, whoa, 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 I'm just asking. I guess maybe you are nervous because all of a sudden now you want to lawyer up. If you've got nothing to hide, why don't you let me take a look in your car? That's when you look at the officer and say, officer, I do not consent to searches. I exercise my right to remain silent. Am I free to leave? And if the cop still doesn't get what he
Yeah, and you need to make sure that you say you exercise your right to the Fifth Amendment, because it's already been through the Supreme Court ruled that just being silent isn't enough. That could be shown as not being cooperative or being receptive. So you need to say that you're um, invoking your Fifth Amendment right or something of that sort, so they know what you're doing and that you're not just not cooperating.
He might pull out the one phrase that makes many people panic. Well, if you're going to act like this, I'm going to call a canine unit out to search your car. Here's what you need to know. That threat to call a canine unit out, that's a bluff. Because under the Supreme Court case of
They can't
Rodriguez
wait.
versus United States, cops cannot extend the length of the traffic stop beyond the original purpose of the stop. In other words, if the cops pull you over for some ticky-tack traffic reason and they want to extend it out by playing games with you, anything they try to do beyond the time it takes to write that ticket is illegal under the law. So if they pull that on you, know the law, know your rights, stay calm and say, am I detained or am I free to go? And as always, never assume that officer's body camera is on or recording any of this. You never want it to be your word versus theirs. So the best thing you can do, if you have a camera inside the car, keep it running all the time. If you have your phone, make sure you push record so that everything is memorialized and the truth will actually be exposed. But what if you do everything right?
Yeah, recording is so important. It is so important. They'll say they're recording. You try to do a FOIA or a Sunshine or whatever it's called where you live, and they may not have the video anymore, or they don't want to give it to you, or they redact a lot of it. So having your own copy is so important to keep yourself safe. So many cases would have never seen the internet at all if it wasn't for their own recordings. So if you enjoyed this video, check out Hampton Law. Leave a comment on the video and this video to your cousin.